Welcome to Bringing Financial Opportunities to Black Women Entrepreneurs. This session will begin soon.
Welcome to our wonderful panel on bringing financial opportunities to Black women entrepreneurs. As my colleagues join us, let me tell you, this is a wonderful, wonderful panel in our track today about helping women entrepreneurs soar, a subject of great importance to me and to the Women Business Collaborative. Let me introduce to you our moderator today, Nicole Colbert. Nick, as she told me she likes to be called. She's smiling. She's a principal managing partner of Colbert, Johnson and Romney, an award-winning multi-million-dollar legal and business consulting firm. And Nick is the founder of the BOW Collaborative, Black Organizations Women Collective, a professional organization and nonprofit of Black women owners dedicated to bringing financial opportunities to scale businesses that exceed $1 million in annual revenues. I know you're going to find the insights of this panel amazing. I know you're going to get a big wow out of bow. And Nick, I turn this over to you to introduce the panel. I'm going to be behind the screen, but I'll tell you, I'm smiling the whole way. Enjoy the panel discussion. For our audience, stay tuned. This is really rich, filled with great insight. Bye-bye now.
Thank you so much, Andy. I am delighted, is not an overstatement. I am delighted to be here with my sisters in business. I'm so grateful to my WBC board members for putting together such an amazing day of content, really celebrating women in business. So as we get started here, I get to be the best version of myself, which is a cheerleader. I get to sit here and talk to some amazing women in business who happen to be my friends. I got a great squad here today. We're going to start off with S. Catherine Allen. She is one of Washington's most recognizable female bankers, and she is the co-president of Answer Title and Escrow. The creation of a title company was a natural evolution for her. In addition, she is a real estate attorney, and the goal built for Answer Title is to be one of the largest title companies in the region. And she is an amazing member of our newly formed BOW Collective, and we'll hear more from her about that later. Next, we have an amazing young lady. Her name is Ms. Delisa Guiller. She is an accomplished real estate executive and entrepreneur with experience in community building, and she provides much vision for the company's direction and choice of projects. Now, I love that she is a trailblazer in the real estate development community, but I also love that she is one of Oakland's finest, just like myself, from Oakland, California. She has built an amazing business that we are going to hear more about today, Guiller Development. And last but most assuredly not least, we have Jill Johnson. She is the co-founder and CEO of the Institute of Entrepreneurial Leadership based in Newark, New Jersey. And it was founded in 2002, I believe, with her father. They have a passion of driving economic development through entrepreneurship. So she has been an entrepreneur for 3 decades. You and me both, sister, we are in the trenches trying to really empower our communities, Black entrepreneurs through resources and relationships. So ladies, thank you all so much for being here today. All right. I know these little panel discussions, we got to lead them off with questions. So I want to start off with you, Jill, and I really just appreciate and applaud what you have done, not only for all entrepreneurs, but you are one of the trailblazers that say we want to shine light on women entrepreneurs. We want to shine light on Black women, the ecosystem for entrepreneurship. Can you tell us just a little bit about your company, your background, and some of the unique stories that you have found about your throughout the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and some of the specific challenges with capital and Black women entrepreneurs?
Sure, happy to. And again, thank you so much for the invitation to participate on this panel, and congratulations again to you with everything that you're doing with the Bow Collective. That is, again, quite a unique model. So, kudos to you and the team. As you said, my parents were business owners. They had a newspaper publishing company for about 20 years. And one of their publications was the Minority Business Journal of New York and New Jersey. So I was hearing about issues of access to capital way back when I was like a kid. So that was, my life and what I knew. When I started my career after college, I was in the financial analyst program at Goldman Sachs and mergers and acquisitions. You might imagine that was a completely different world, right? Where capital was just not a problem. People not only had businesses, but they extracted the value that they had created in those businesses. The business was not simply self-employment. And that is what I saw for so many of the businesses that were my parents' peers, is that it was a good livelihood. They did well. And some of the businesses, were multi-million-dollar businesses even. However, they were not really focused on the wealth creation aspect, in that they were not treating it as an asset where they were building up value that they were then able to extract. So when my parents decided that after 20 years, we've had enough, we want to move on and do something else, they had not created the business in a way to, again, extract that value. That is wealth lost in the Black community for women. Again, I don't often see people who have been historically excluded from access to capital really building wealth in that way. As an organization, our focus is not just helping businesses, that's sort of a byproduct, but it is really trying to get people to think about how you build and create wealth. And again, use this business, create the business as an asset. One of the challenges that I see, and again, this has been over the years, and since my parents were in business, I saw this too, was in not having the capital to start, and not having your own personal savings to a significant degree, not having a 401k from which you can draw, not having friends and family money, doesn't put you on the path to being able to secure other forms of capital, the significant bank capital. I mean, again, you might be able to secure a little bit of money there, but you're not necessarily getting the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? In bank capital, you're not able to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in angel capital that then puts you on a path to venture capital. And that's really what I see is the core challenge, is that while women-owned businesses and Black women-owned businesses especially are able to get started and they're able to stay in business, often they're kind of eking it out, and just kind of hobbling along because they're not able to get that infusion of capital to really set them on that huge growth trajectory. That leads to a whole bunch of other issues and challenges. And it's sort of like a cycle, right? You don't have the resources, you can't do the things you need to do to get the resources, and that just continues. And so, really what we are on a mission around with our organization is to get more people of color, more women, more Black people involved in the investor ecosystem. That's where a lot of it starts, around the issue of access to capital for women entrepreneurs and for Black women entrepreneurs especially. Did I cover everything you wanted me to cover?
No, that was perfect. And you gave me so many segues. So this is perfect. So what I want to do, Catherine and Delisa, first I want to go to Catherine from more of a technical background and story, because Jill hit on a number of obstacles, right? Where, again, this path of capital, having the credit, having the lines, the loans. And with your background, Catherine, being in the banking industry, I would love for you to share with our audience maybe some tips. We'll stay in the first kind of bucket of capital, which are traditional lines of credit. Can you give us some tips and secrets? And then I'll go to Delisa for hands-on stories, because Jill talked about the need for angel investment. And I know that Delisa has a personal story about how she has grown and access capital in that sense. All right, how's that?
Absolutely. Again, thank you. As Jill said, thank you for having us on this amazing panel. We talked a little bit about the Bow Collective and what an amazing organization this is for all of us. And we're going to be talking to you a little bit about what we do and how we're doing it. As Nick mentioned, I am been in the banking world for a very long time, banking attorney as well as a real estate attorney, sit on a bank board. Nick, I don't even think you are aware of this, but my father, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but my father, being an entrepreneur in the 50s and 60s in our small town in Fayetteville, North Carolina, hit the same roadblock that many of us are still talking about 70 plus years later, of the issues of raising and having access to capital. And he and several other people actually started the first Black bank in my small town of Fayetteville, North Carolina. So it, again, in my DNA, it's something that I've been exposed to for a very long time.
That's one thing the three of us have in common. I'm a second generation entrepreneur as well. Delisa, I'll see if that goes for you as well. But no, it is in our blood, and unfortunately in our experiences that access to capital is always a challenge. My dad owned a convenience store that went out of business as soon as the Costco's and so forth came online, and he couldn't compete and he couldn't get a line. So that resonates deeply with me.
Absolutely. So a couple of the things that my lender friends have just, they're adamant about how important it is to report your actual earnings. That seems like a kind of intuitive kind of thing, but we have very creative accountants, or we have very creative ways of trying to present ourselves. Yeah. And when you are going for that financing, they could not tell you more how important it is to actually have that the actual earnings presented in your financials.
Being profitable, other ways, right? You got to show you can make money. To get money, exactly. You got to show you got to make money.
There you go. And that really brings me to something I always share when I'm mentoring or talking to young business owners. Invest in a good accountant or good bookkeeper, someone to help you. We have all these skills and all these degrees, but we don't necessarily have that specific skill, which is managing your numbers, looking at using those numbers to make good decisions, knowing when you're profitable and not profitable, that sort of thing. So it's really important to do it, and it's worth every dime to be able to do that. Another thing that they've really discussed was collect on your receivables. Like go make sure that you're going and getting the money that you have out there, because again, it affects your bottom line. It affects how you look to the lenders in terms of how they're viewing your cash flow and that sort of thing. Something that I hadn't heard before that I was really, it surprised me, but one of my lenders said how important it is to know where you are in your business cycle. Like, are you in a startup? Are you in the growth phase? Are you, level and want to jump to another level? But it's important for you to know that, because it really, again, affects the conversation that you should be having with your lender around what's available. This is partly because of COVID, but another huge thing was to please be transparent and upfront. They said that so many folks are not talking about sort of the mushy time, COVID, and the challenges that we face. They're going to find out, and they'd much rather have us tell them upfront, here's what happened, here's why you might see a dip, here's whatever challenge you face. Make sure that you share that in a transparent way so that they can then work with it. If they find it out later, it causes all kinds of issues, and they're going to find out.
Absolutely.
And then this was interesting from one of our credit analysts who said how important it is once you get that loan, once you get that credit, to understand your loan documents. Like, take the time to read them, take the time to ask questions about it, because there are parts in there that talk about how you default, and you could be in default and not even know it just because you weren't aware of, a report that you had to do or financials that you had to deliver. So again, important to understand your documents. So I'll stop there. But
those were nuggets. Those were great nuggets. And one thing I would add to is, your left hand is the bank, your right hand is the accountant. They absolutely need to know what each other is doing, all be in communication, and all be on the same page about your growth and access to capital goals. So even if, you're saying, hey, I want to get another facility, or I want to bring on new team members in another place, everybody should be on the same page, so your numbers will be reflective that the bank is saying, hey, we need you to have a profit of X, and your accountant knows that we're not trying to show a loss just for taxes. You have multiple purposes and multiple times. So I think those are all great nuggets. I want to shift focus because Jill gave us such great insight about angels and investing. One bucket of money is that a traditional line, but Delisa, I know that you have a both and experience. You are the bomb.com lady. So I would love for you to just give us some insight, because the development game is a very competitive type of, quote, small business. And there's you have experience with a lot of different type of capital as a developer, as a Black female developer. And I'd love for you to share with our audience maybe those different buckets and different experiences.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I guess to back up a little. So I own a real estate development and construction company, and started really from nothing. It actually started from me helping my husband in his automotive company. And I needed something to do to keep myself excited, because I wasn't interested in cars like he was. But even through the automotive company, I've had such an experience on every level when it comes to access to capital. So I guess to give you a big picture, when I joined my husband in his automotive company, we grew his business from doing just about 100,000 a year to just under 10 million a year in about 5 years. Simultaneously, I was working in the real estate world and helping families during sort of a post-recession market. And that opened up the opportunity for just small developments, infill projects, 2 units, 4 units, that grew to pocket neighborhoods, townhome developments, and then that's grown to multifamily units. So right now we have a little bit over $250 million worth of projects in some phase of development right now, not including my large project that I'm sure we'll talk about. But in the automotive industry, it was interesting because here I was depositing hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. And I went to a bank and said, we need a loan for our business. Well, we didn't own the land. So they said, well, it's hard to put assets. It's hard to have a vehicle as an asset because cars are always moving. And they said, well, we can give you a line of credit or a credit card for $5,000. And this is a month I had just deposited $300,000 in the bank, and it was interesting to see that I thought I had a relationship there with that bank, and
relationship in air quotes.
Relationship. So that was when my husband and I really start focusing on the word relationship with a bank means so much more than we thought. And so in order to pursue all of our business endeavors, we need to find banks that want a relationship with us and that believe in where we're going, and start just creating deposit relationships. We're not going to go to them and start off saying, hey, we need a loan, but just we want to make sure that we are in line with who we're banking with. So that was sort of the start of it, and the sort of
The aha
slap in the
moment
face.
for you.
That's right. And then when we started our real estate development company, we went to a bank and we asked for a loan to build these 4 houses, and the land was paid off. We had the plans fully done. We had permits in hand, and we ended up getting a loan with the bank for the construction. And I think it was Miss Catherine who just said to understand your loan documents.
Yeah.
That is a measure twice and cut once, 100%. Because after we signed, I looked, and then I went back and I looked at my budgets, and I looked at what I signed this loan for, and the banker looked at me and he said, "I didn't mean to bamboozle you." And so there were, we've been through some interesting times. And I think if we were in any other financial predicament, it really could have put us in a bad place, because we ended up having to pay more than what he originally said in his commitment. And so we've been through a lot, and here we are. So we've taken the route to establish solid relationships in banks and prove ourselves. We knew that we're at a deficit, if you will, because we're starting from nothing. We've grown, and I think someone mentioned about taxes, and we understood early that you can't go and write everything off. You have to show that you're making money and you can pay taxes in order to afford to grow. And those were all lessons that we learned, and we ended up developing relationships with banks here in Nashville, local banks, smaller banks that have an appetite for real estate. And that was important, making sure.
I think that's such a good point. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No.
the difference of those banking relationships, the former versus the latter, I think
Yes.
Everyone on this call has had an experience that it hits like, do they really want me to be approved? Are they looking to disqualify? And
That's right.
you found a different experience. Touch on that briefly, the after experience with traditional banks, but I also want to segue into the angels, because I think
Sure.
that with development, with your amazing project that you're doing, you leveled up, so to speak.
That's right.
With that capital stack. We'd love to hear more.
That's right. So I think that the shift happened when I started asking the right questions, and understanding what is your appetite for this company. There's a lot of companies who do not like automotive, and here we are banking with them. But how can we expect for them to do anything else for us when that's not in their lane? And then asking some of our friends, well, who have you worked with? Who have you, in the automotive field or in the real estate development? And that's how we established our really great relationships in the real estate development world, was through referrals and through sitting with smaller community banks who have the capacity and the interest in their town and in seeing communities grow, and their interests align with our own. And we started, getting approved for significant development lines of credit and things like that, that allowed us to grow without bringing on outside partners. We had enough capital ourselves and enough good reputation, right, to start those relationships. And that helped us really scale. And then I started off on a venture which started small to bring a small little park to Nashville for families, because there's not a lot in Middle Tennessee to do for families. And I thought that would be actually when I first started, I thought it would be about a $3 million venture. Then it turned into a couple more commas and zeros. So it's now a $300 million theme park with a $640 million real estate development around it. And I fully self-funded everything. I know, thank you. I self-funded everything to get it to a place where it was investable, where I had a full, complete package together that I could take and let someone see my vision and let
Mhm.
someone else be able to feel comfortable enough to believe in it and invest in it. And so last year we received it. It wasn't an angel investor, but it was a private equity group.
Private
So
equity.
similar, that committed to 316 million to fund the first part of the development, if you will. And so many great things have happened since, but it's been a journey. And I'd say the biggest thing that I learned, and I'm thankful because I learned it in my real estate development career, just from building 2 houses, is
Mhm.
that if the package is not right, you can't expect for someone else to see the vision and therefore invest or even finance it if you're going to a bank.
Correct.
And learning that and making the mistakes that I made in having all the right parts to what a complete package looks like definitely helped me in securing what I secured for the theme park opportunity. So.
I love that so much, because that's an objective standard, right? Your numbers have to be right. And we do know as entrepreneurs, women, Black women, that there are all kinds of subjective things that can play a part. However, the bottom line is always the bottom line, that those numbers, whomever you're doing business with, whatever entity, they want a return. They want their money back, full stop. And I think that, your journey, your arc, and thank you so much for your transparency, you started, but you educated yourself through those mistakes, and each one led to a different type of capital access. And we couldn't be more proud of you. We could not be more proud.
Thank you.
So what I want to do now is shift the paradigm a bit, shift the conversation to, we've danced around this thing called the BOW, the BOW, the BOW, the BOW Collective. And I want to say that, the sisters that are on this panel are trailblazers in their own right. They are blazing a path. And again, just by being who they are, where they are representing Black women and Black women entrepreneurship so well. And the thought about the collective was, how can we bring all of these superpowers together in with a different paradigm? And as Jill mentioned, this is unique. And I want to talk to Catherine a bit about the collective, and focus for us, if you could tell our audience what it is, what the goals of the collective are, but specifically as it comes to access to capital as a paradigm.
Thanks. So I apologize. I'm in a space that there might be a little background noise, but we're gonna power through. So within the BOW, our strategy has always been multi-pronged. We are looking at communication, we're looking at capital, we're looking at contracts in support of our membership. And within that capital focus, for instance, as we've discussed, we're working on traditional lender financing, like any small business, any entrepreneur. But as we've talked about, this can sometimes be challenging. To put it mildly, this can sometimes be challenging. So another prong of our approach is to build our own private equity fund. So we are literally creating the BOW Fund. This is a vehicle which will allow us to invest in small but scaling businesses. These businesses will then be able to, many of the things that Delisa's talked about, that others of us have talked about, will be able to use this critical capital to expand our facilities, to buy equipment, increase our workforce, build theme parks, do like phenomenal things, right? We're still in the development stages of the fund. But we will most likely go with the SBIC, or the Small Business Investment Company. We'll go that route. because of its establishment and that we know that we can navigate those requirements. SBICs specifically provide equity, long-term loans, which many of us in the entrepreneurial world call patient money. So money that gives us a minute to actually grow our businesses, debt and equity investments, and also provide management assistance. So we are incredibly excited about launching on this path, as well as, dual path of also continuing along traditional financing
I
pathways.
appreciate that so much. Jill, I want to get your thoughts on that because I know this is your jam. Like I know that building Black generational wealth, building Black businesses, and most importantly, building angels. That's what the Bow Collective, we have 50 of these trailblazing businesses. Each one of them are Black women with gross annual sales at least at 1 million or above. And we really want to figure out a way to collectively bring our resources, our relationships to the table, to the capital table. What are your thoughts about that? And what are some of the bits of advice, pieces of advice you would have for these women trying to be angel investors and create generational wealth together?
Yeah, so we should absolutely continue to collaborate in this area because I think that oftentimes we have small efforts and small pockets of money. When if we can collaborate, we can have bigger pots of money and a lot more resources. I think that, the message that we're trying to put out there is that everyone who has some financial capacity, right? Some financial capacity. And when we say that, we take a broad approach to that, meaning if you can afford to, be investing hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, if you can afford to invest tens of thousands of dollars, or it might be cutting back on, some of the coffee, expensive coffee that you're getting out every day, so that you can even invest a couple $100. There's room for everyone to be part of the investor ecosystem. So that could be investing in projects like Delisa's. It could be investing in crowdfunding campaigns, even where you can be part of it for as little as, $100, $150 or so. The capital that business owners are raising, whatever it is important and meaningful to them, and they need it. So wherever you can play, that's our message, because when you go to a bank and you don't have the equity, you can't get a loan if you can't put down the 20% or 30% or whatever it is that they are requiring. If you have had to use your credit cards to get started because you didn't have capital, and then someone pays late and then you end up paying your credit card late. I mean, that's how it gets started. We do a lot of talk about access to, or rather, credit, and people then end up with credit counting, all that kind of stuff. It's not that people were just totally irresponsible with credit. It was that they had to pick and choose, right? It was pay my employees or pay this bill. And that's how they got into that jam, not just because they just didn't know or were irresponsible. It was a choice. I am going to keep my business afloat. And that's how we really have to look at Black women-owned businesses, is that, as a whole, looking from a holistic approach, these are women who have been able to, by hook or crook, keep their business afloat, and they were willing to do whatever it took. So we have to look at that when we, assess risk. It's not about just looking at traditional metrics and indicators that were created as exclusionary tactics in the first place. We have to look at how we assess risk by looking at their resilience, how they've been able to stay in business, what the vision is, their fortitude, and all of that, and look at things that have often been deemed to be negative attributes of the business. We have to look at the positive attributes of the entrepreneur and be willing to invest in that.
Oh, that's excellent. And I do have to say, what you said totally resonates with me. one of the things, the Bow Collective, one of our signature new events is the Bow and the Banker. And we're trying to bring our 50 profiles together, right? And there's going to be an arc in there. There's going to be a median where some of the businesses did have challenges on the personal side and some don't. But we are coming together to unite and say, hey, these are the top 0.5 most successful Black women businesses you have, infusing capital in those businesses and holding them accountable, seeing who sees this vision, who sees that, as you said, some of these businesses are over leveraged on the personal side because they weren't able to access capital on the commercial side. And we want to make a fundamental change to that. Delisa, I want to end with, in this next round with asking you just a kind of an open-ended question, because when we did our prep session, you really did say something that resonated with me, because, you know, a lot of people tend to lead with the challenges of entrepreneurship or challenges of being a Black woman entrepreneur. And that is not the story or the narrative at all that we see. We do see challenges, but we do see the resiliency, and we also see the belief in that business. And you said something the other day I'd love for you to share again, whereas, you know, we talked about the law of averages, that there are a lot of no's before the yes, but it really relies on the commitment to your business and getting to that yes. Your belief has to be bigger than one person. Can you share that that kind of anecdote and one tip or strategy that you would have for women that are listening and inspired by you today?
Absolutely. I think we discussed, you know, how personally, you know, my mantra has been that you don't put a business plan together based off of someone else's perception of it, right? You do it because you believe in it and you know that this is something that you're being called to do in one way or another. And so if you leave the weight of the success of this business in the hands of anyone else, I mean, you may as well just kind of pack it up now, right? But if you decide that this is the plan, you're open for constructive criticism and feedback to move it forward, that no is not going to stop you, then you have no choice but to succeed. And of course you'll run up against no's. It's part of the process. And my thing is don't base the business plan or your plans of getting financing in someone else's hands, or leave your, let's see, your mission to get this done,
Your destiny, your vision,
in a yes or a no. You have to decide that it's going to get done regardless. And that's how I've been able to get where I am.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
Catherine, I'm going to give you, you know, just some reflections on today, but also one tip. You gave us some great technical nuggets, but now I want you to tell us just something from your journey as an entrepreneur yourself. What is one piece of advice that you would like to leave our viewers with?
Thank you, Nick. I have a couple of comments I want to make, and Jill, don't mess with my Starbucks. That's number one. And Delisa made a really smart, I mean, she made a comment that I really don't want to just gloss over. She talked about, from the lender's point of view, like what their appetite was. And I can't emphasize enough that just like our businesses, we have focus. When you're dealing with lenders, you need to make sure that they, A, have an appetite for whatever it is you're asking for the money, but also have experience in lending on that. Because if they don't, there are things that they're not going to understand about your business. I mean, and that's going to cause problems in terms of getting to that yes. From my own personal, you know, certainly 18 years of with Answer Title, and my business partner and I, we just wouldn't stop. I mean, it's a version of what Delisa is saying in terms of don't let the no stop you. We just quitting or not having it succeed, was never a part of our dialogue. It just never was. We started this business together at one of our dining room tables, and we literally grew it from zero to the business that we are now. And we've had so many challenges. I mean, 2008 alone, when the real estate market crashed, I mean, there were so many title businesses that went out of business. It was never an option for us. We are going to succeed, and we refuse to give up. We just refuse. So if one door closed, we went here. If we pivoted, we put in different lines of income so that we weren't so dependent on whether somebody was buying a house today or what the real estate market was doing. We started doing contracting, and we did other things. We refuse to stop. And that's what I would say got us to where we are.
The great words of Puff Daddy: can't stop, won't stop, don't know how to stop. I'm sorry. I bet that no one has ever quoted Puff Daddy at WBC. And here you have it, throwing down the mic. With that, I'm going to give Jill the last words. Give us something, girl. Give us some inspiration. You've been in this game for so long. Give us some pearls for our audience.
Hey, look, I don't know if it's pearls so much as just, just do it. And we have to be more fearless. We have to act in a way that we know that what we're saying is on target, it's on point. We have to find the people who are willing to listen and who are ready to listen. And this is where, I sort of call out and call on the ally community that if diversity matters to you and you say that inclusion is so important, then be about it. Open doors, provide that help. And we have to start asking for it, right? We have to be clear on what we want. We have to say what we want. We have to expect to get it. And I think if more of us do that, and we also work together with that expectation, we say that, there's plenty out there. We don't need to be, it's either you or me, it's us together, right? And we do it together. Yeah. We can have a bigger pie, we can open more doors, and there can be more success. And most importantly, for us, we have to start thinking about success as wealth creation, not just having a job, not just having a good income, but as wealth creation. So we can really start to build that legacy that we all want to see for our children.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. And that nearly concludes our panel. First of all, I just want to thank again our WBC allies for having a trailblazing panel for Black women entrepreneurs. That is a small bit of history there, and it shows the true focus that Black women, we have some unique challenges. That is one of the reasons that we came together. 24,000 gross annual sales compared to our other sister business owners. We wanted to come together and bring awareness of that disparity and eliminate it. And being together with WBC and each other is one of the trajectories and very traditional things, out of the box things that we are trying to do. Thank you all so much for allowing me to be your host, your facilitator today. And Andy, thank you. Over to you.
As I'm listening to you, I think the thank you comes from us to you. When I heard about the Bow Collective, you had to be here. It is a time for all of us, but you in particular, to rise and to be able to really talk about what we are doing. And I love, Jill, when you said we have to be fearless. Yeah, and bold and brave and courageous. And there's more than enough money, but we also need to know what we're doing. Because simply to be bold, brave, and courageous can push us right down that hole because we don't know what we're doing. And Delisa sees alone, this was really cool. No, it's not. I mean, what did I miss here? And there's so much to learn as we move into the next sphere of where we're going. But I do think this has been a marvelous, marvelous panel. And as I've been sitting behind the screen, I too have been smiling, as you have been smiling. A great time to share. And I hope that the collaboration turns into great opportunities for all of us to rise together. This is just so great. Let me tell our audience, that our next panel starts at 1:10. It is 12:59, and we have just an extra minute or so for you to do some self-care and get ready for the next panel. If you love the stuff in entrepreneurs and helping women entrepreneurs rise, our next panel is going to be Judith Goldcran, and you're not going to want to miss the conversation around opening doors for capital for women entrepreneurs. The theme has been, how do we open the doors, be fearless, brave, and bold, and I know what we're doing. So thank you all for coming, and I'll say goodbye now. And thank you for being here. Goodbye, all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for attending.